Well, it's time to jump in the water, catch a wave, and ride the surf as we attempt to maneuver the sales pipeline with Matt Heinz at Heinz Marketing. Hey, Matt.
How we doing, Paul?
I'm good. Where are you out and about in the world again here today?
So today we are in a beautiful but slightly overcast downtown Seattle. It is, you know what? We've had such great weather up here the last few days. It's supposed to be nice later today. Hopefully, knock on wood, nice over the holiday weekend. So, it's, but I get to be home. I have a 2-week stretch.
Wow.
It's amazing. It's fantastic. It's
incredible.
Can't believe it. It is awesome. So, yeah. So cool. Awesome. Well, thanks everyone for joining us. This is, we do this show live every week, at 11:30. Pacific, 2:30 Eastern on Thursdays, and today is June 30th. And so, if you are in sales and you are listening to this call, what the hell are you doing? It's the last day of the month. It's the last day of the quarter. Go sell something, for crying out loud. Kind of a rough day. I think I saw something a couple days ago on the interweb. Someone sent me a picture, and it was a before and after picture, and it was the salesperson at the beginning of the month picture, and it was a picture of Kit Harington, who, if you're a Game of Thrones fan, he plays Jon Snow. And so, the first picture was him, literally like on the red carpet, looking beautiful. And the last picture was the last day of the month, and it was a picture of Kit Harington's character toward the end of episode 9 of this past season. And without giving anything away, he did not look like he was still on the red carpet at that point. He was in much worse shape. So for those of you that are listening live today, thank you very much for being here. Excited to have you here. We are actually today going to focus not on the current month, current quarter, but we're going to start thinking about the next quarter and the next the next selling period. Because I think after today ends, we close the book on the quarter, we close the book on the month, and we start heading into the second half of the year. And, one of the things that I'm really interested in is what are we now doing to prepare for that second half of the year? So we're going to do a couple things today. I'm going to walk through some specific reasons why a lot of people don't hit their number. Sometimes you look at this 2 weeks into the month. Sometimes you look at this a few weeks into the quarter. And it's a good time to reflect on what may or may not have gone well for you over the last month or the last quarter. So we're going to talk about some things that I'd recommend that you do or look at that are reasons why people maybe don't hit their number. Also, we're going to talk about some things that we recommend companies do either monthly or quarterly or at least about twice yearly in terms of reviewing how their programs are going, how the sales and marketing work. And finally, I'll walk through what we see as sort of a 7-point blueprint for doing a health check on your business, on your sales and marketing processes for the year. We're going to try something a little different today. So we don't have a planned guest. I wanted to spend time today walking through these frameworks for how to think about your business, think about the past quarter, think about the next quarter, the next selling period. We are going to attempt to take some live calls. I'm not sure, Paul, how this is going to go. We haven't announced this in advance. We've never done this before.
We'll see what happens.
We're going to see what happens. So, Paul, if someone is interested in joining the show today, if they're interested in calling in, what should they do? What do we have them call?
All they have to do is call our number, and it's not toll free, but it is in today's world. I don't know that matters anymore. The phone number to call in and get on the air with Matt is this: 949-330-7761. 949-330-7761. We'll pick it up here at the studio. We'll get you all lined up, and we'll get you on as we can during the program here.
Cool. Well, let's immediately sort of talk through, I think we always talk about sort of best laid plans. You start the month, you start the quarter with what you want to do in your business, what you want to do in your territory. But you know what they say about best laid plans sometimes, right? Like, the best laid plans don't survive first contact with the battlefield, or as the noted poet, philosopher Mike Tyson once said, everyone has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. And if you're in sales, hell, if you're in marketing, if you're doing anything pipeline creation related, you know what it's like to get punched in the mouth sometimes. So, once you get past the beginning of the month, beginning of the quarter, lots of things can go wrong. I think there's 10 reasons that we typically see that are the primary reasons why people start to not hit their number or start to fall behind. And I want to quick walk through these. I think these are good things to think about as we go into the next month, into the next quarter. The first one we typically see is you don't have a plan to begin with. You either hope is your strategy or whatnot. You don't know what you want to do. It's one thing to have a number that you're trying to hit. It's a whole other thing entirely to have a plan set aside for that, right? I mean, setting a sales goal is not the plan. Telling your sales team or your leadership or board that your sales number you're going to hit this year, this month, your quarter isn't the plan either. So how are you going to get there? Again, how have you quantified or planned the leading indicators to close business? Does your sales management team, does your frontline reps, does your marketing team, do they know what their roles are to go after that? Have you enumerated who your target accounts are and why? Oftentimes, people say, "Oh, I got to hit a certain number," and my plan is, here's the companies I'm going to sell to. Well, that's not a plan. The plan is knowing why those companies are on the list. Are they all the best logos? Do they have certain attributes that make them more attractive to actually sell into? It's never too late to create that plan. If you're late in the quarter, late in the month, you can still create a plan for how you do things moving forward. But a plan tells you how to get there. A plan tells you how to get to that finish line. It doesn't just tell you where the finish line is. So number one is you don't have a plan. Number two, you don't commit the resources required to sell. If your existing team, so first of all, can your existing sales team hit the goals that you set out to achieve? Just because you set a number, just because a spreadsheet said something, doesn't mean that it's possible. I've seen a lot of marketing teams create a lead goal for their sales organizations without really understanding what that lead goal means, without really understanding how many leads are required to fill the pipeline to help the sales team. So how well do you understand what it's going to take to get to your pipeline requirements? So it's creating a plan. It's ensuring you have the resources you need in place, and then committing to those resources moving forward. This goes for the size, quality, makeup of your sales team, the tools they may be using on a daily basis, the budget you need for compensation and incentive programs, what you need for marketing and so forth. So if you have a plan but don't have the resources to execute on it, back to a Game of Thrones analogy, if you're planning to march on Winterfell but you have no army, or you only have a few ragtag people that you gave swords to and have not had any training and don't know what to do with them, you're not likely going to take Winterfell. It's interesting. I mean, it sounds so fundamental to say, well, two of the biggest problems people have in not hitting their number, they don't have a plan to begin with. They don't commit the resources required to sell. But that is, you look at so many people that don't hit their number and they didn't really know how they were going to hit the number to begin with. Fundamental. Yeah, Paul.
We had somebody, they weren't brave enough to call in, but they tweeted in, and I thought this is interesting. How important is it to know your closing ratio in creating a plan? And I think what they're getting at is, in other words, if I'm going to go after 50 contacts and I regularly close 50% of them, that's a heck of a lot different than if I only close 1 out of 50 here.
Well, it certainly is. It's such a good question. Whoever asked that question, I really, really appreciate that. I think one of the things I didn't really have on my list to cover today, but is certainly germane in most cases, is you don't have a big enough pipeline. And what that means is you don't have a big enough pipeline with a correct assumption around how many of those deals you're going to close. I've found that if you qualify opportunities correctly, meaning you've got some version of budget authority, need, timeline identified correctly, you are probably going to close 25 to 33% of those opportunities. Doesn't matter the sales cycle length. And honestly, I've seen this across multiple industries. And here's what's interesting about that number is that even if you have someone that you believe is going to buy, they have budget, they have need, they're the right person who can decide on it, they have a timeline, they've got all those things in place, you're still going to lose the majority of those deals. And it's not your fault. It's not your product's fault. It's just that's the math. So if you expect a higher number to close just because you love your product, if you expect a higher number of to close because you say, no, this time, this quarter, this month, our prospects are better, they're ready, you're fooling yourself. You're chasing after prospects that just are not ready to buy. You are over investing in relationships at the expense of going after and converting on new ones. And if you don't have a big enough pipeline, not only do you expect certain deals to close, but you end up wasting time and putting too much urgency, too much pressure on deals that very well may close later, except for the fact that you may be trying to create too much urgency, looking pushy, looking like you need that deal more than you should, and you send them away to a competitor.
Well, we did have somebody brave enough to call in here. It's the creator of the whole channel that we use here, Funnel Radio, Jim Overmeyer. Go ahead, Jim. You're on with Matt Heinz.
Jim, you were our first. I can't tell you how I'm excited. Our very first calling guest, Sales Pipeline Radio.
Well, you get more as time goes on. My question is, how big should the pipeline be for the salesperson? Let's say he's got to sell $50,000 a month. How big of a pipeline does he need? And then how big of a pipeline does the marketing department need to feed that pipeline to the sales rep? I'll get off and let you answer. Take care.
That's great. Yeah, thank you very much. So I think I've always wanted to say this on radio: long-time listener, first-time caller. Jim, does that count, Jim? That's so awesome.
Yeah.
So thank you, Jim, for Jim. If you don't know Jim is the manager of the Funnel Network, the newly named Funnel Network, and just a great guy, great partner, great friend of the show. It's a great question. If anyone's interested, I will send me an email, just Matt MATT at Heinz Marketing, HEINZ Marketing.com. And I actually have a mathematical model in a spreadsheet that I'll give you. You can plug in your numbers. So let's take Jim's example. You got to close 50,000 in sales this month. What is your deal size? Like, are you selling deals that are 50K in size? In which case, you have to close one deal. If you're selling deals that are 10K, you have to close 5 deals. If you're selling deals that are 1K, you have to close 50 deals, right? So this all comes, you have to end up with a number that you can buy a beer with. But how many deals do you need to close to hit that number? I would then apply that 25 to 33%. So let's be conservative and use the 25% number. If you need 5 deals this month, and each of those deals is going to be worth $10,000 to you, you need 5 times 4. You need 20 opportunities in your pipeline. And I would argue you need those at the beginning of the selling period. So if your typical sales cycle is 30 days, let's keep this simple. Beginning of July, if you need 30 days to close deals and you expect 25% of your deals to close, you need 20 opportunities in your pipeline tomorrow, July 1st, right? You need them right away. It is possible that you could get a bluebird that shows up and closes. It is possible that you could have a deal that you thought was going to close in August, but actually closes faster. But I would not bet your commission check on possible. I would not bet your commission check on what might happen. So let's say you've got 20 opportunities that you have at the beginning of the sales cycle. Well, to get to those opportunities, you need to have qualified leads. My math typically starts with a 5% assumption of leads converting into opportunities. So now if I need 20 deals, I need 20 times 20 leads. I need 400 leads. I need 400 conversations with qualified prospects. In this case, I've got a pretty wide definition of that. I'll take someone who is qualified, not ready to buy. I'll take someone who's the right person at the right company that I'm having a conversation with, right? It could be an inbound lead. It can be an outbound call. Outbound calls, I tend to assume that will take a much lower conversion rate, 5%. But if you've got inbound leads, I'm assuming 5% of those are probably going to be qualified and ready to buy, at least to engage in your sales cycle. So you got to close $50,000. You got to close 5 deals this month. You need 400 leads. Yes, that is a big number, but that's the math. And you need those leads before that selling cycle begins. So to a certain extent, Jim, it's wherever you're sitting right now, if you've got a number to hit for Q3 and your sales cycle is 6 to 8 months, if you don't have enough pipeline now, you've got a bit of a problem, right? But the reality is the reality. The best time to prepare for today is 10 months ago. The second best time would be today, right? I mean, just get started. So, Jim, hopefully that answers your question. Paul, you're stepping up. You gotta, it goes a lot faster when you don't have guests. My goodness. We are just flying through. We're going to probably run out of time to cover everything today, but, love the conversation. Love the calls. We'll take more callers after the break. Thanks very much, everyone. Last day of the month, last day of the quarter, Sales Pipeline Radio.
Whether you're producing a seminar series, users conference, lunch and learn, or exhibiting at a trade show, Validar has a solution. From capturing leads at trade shows to managing on-site registration, tracking session attendance, gathering information, and providing sponsors lead retrieval, we have a full suite of solutions for you. Since 2005, Validar has been turning corporate events and trade shows into better business. Call 888-784-2929 or visit us at validar.com.
You are under the gun to generate revenue. You need your pipeline full with real deals to make your number. The Vanilla Group is the only firm that delivers tele-based lead generation programs exclusively for enterprise technology providers that get you there. The Vanilla Group achieves results 5 times higher than industry standards for outbound lead generation year after year. By utilizing their unique telesales 2.0 methodology, they make sure you're in front of the key influencers you need to be. They are an award-winning company and results are unsurpassed. The Vanilla Group supports tech firms from Fortune 500 companies to startups. To learn more, visit vanillagroup.com, spelled V-A-N-E-L-L-A group.com, or call 888-335-0340. That's 888-335-0340. Follow us on Twitter at Vanilla Group.
And we're back with Matt, giving everybody a free chance to get some free consultation here. If you want to call in and join the conversation, you can simply pick up the phone and dial 949-330-7761. That's 949-330-7761, or tweet us at OC Talk Radio, and we'll try and work your questions. And back to Matt.
And thank you so much, Paul. This has been fun today. No planned guests. We wanted to cover just how you think about the end of the month, the end of the quarter, beginning of the next month and quarter. A lot of people are thinking about what they need to do differently.
Can I ask one question, and then I'll shut up here? When I did sales a million years ago, and I'm sure it's somewhat the same today, the old crafty guys, they had a few tricks to close the quarter right. They had a few sales in their back pocket. They had a few orders they were dragging out and not turning in as quickly, or they had go-to customers. Is any of that still real? Is that just stupid trickery here?
No, it's real. It's real. It's but the trickery is probably a better word for it. I think there's all kinds of things that sales reps still do that is sort of gaming the system. If you're a rep trying to hit your number, there aren't really very many legitimate reasons to keep a deal in your back pocket until the last day of the month, because it doesn't make you look good the rest of the time. I mean, there's no value in sort of coming into the last day and being a hero versus turning that deal in a week early or 2 weeks early or a month early and having it on the books, potentially getting paid for it earlier as well. There are the legitimate tricks are things like, going to your best customers and saying, hey, dude, do me a solid. The end of Q2 for most people is right now. This is the end of the Microsoft fiscal year. So there are a lot of companies doing business with Microsoft that are cashing in on leftover money that is not going to exist tomorrow because it's a new budget year, right? And so, it's legitimate. Now, I could argue that the problem there is probably more on Microsoft's side. Like, why are you just wasting money? Why have you given teams incentives to just throw that money down the toilet so they can get the same amount next year, whether or not they need it? But as a salesperson, that's not really your problem. And hopefully they still have a need. So, yeah, you can certainly go to that well. What's always bothered me is, the end of the month, the end of the quarter for most of us is an artificial deadline, right? Like, why didn't that deal close earlier? So it's not that it's a bad deadline. It's not that it's not valuable. I mean, if it's valuable as a means of getting not only the deals in, but also helping your buyers make a decision that hopefully helps them and helps make their lives and their job better, then that's all fine and good as well. Good salespeople know how to get deals. I mean, I use that example of the end of the month, the end of the quarter. I mean, I've got a number of friends that are quarterly sales reps. They're selling big figure deals, and so they're not doing month to month. They're doing quarter to quarter. And the last month of the quarter, let alone the last week, are big. I mean, and quite frankly, for many of them that are doing quarterly sales, they may be still trying to close stuff today, but today it's either done or it's not, right? Either you're probably already celebrating or you're really kind of worried about what happens next. So I think so let's talk about the marketing side of the equation here as well, right? I mean, if you're marketing, you would assume a lot of companies assume that marketing's job is done by now, that marketing has generated their leads and fine. What we consistently hear from sales leaders is that they want marketing to feel the terror at the end of the month and the end of the quarter with them, right? That can come in a lot of ways. It can come in just knowing that your compensation or your rewards are tied together, that if a sales team doesn't hit their number, then really marketing you didn't either. So that's one thing to think about. Another is marketing's job is not done when the lead is generated. Marketing has a responsibility and an opportunity to support the sales team's efforts to close deals from a content standpoint, from an offer standpoint, from an incentive standpoint. This is not sales versus marketing. This is a team working together to close the deal. So this is everybody's responsibility. And, hopefully you got one or two things that can happen today, right? Either you hit your number, you pop some champagne, you celebrate, you've got a big commission check coming. If you don't hit your number, that sucks. That probably means there's sort of a lost opportunity to make some money for yourself. But every day, every month, every quarter, there's a new opportunity. Tomorrow morning, everybody starts from scratch. Tomorrow morning, you have the same number on the board as the best salesperson in your company. Someone once had a coffee mug. I can't remember who it was. He had a coffee mug said I have the same number of hours in a day as Beyonce, right? And her point was now I have advantages that you don't, but she has access to a lot of the same things that the rest of us do. She has the same number of hours. She's figuring out how to use those hours in a different way. And so, I think I would encourage anyone listening to this, even if you're not listening to this live today, if you're listening to this a week from now, if you're listening to this on the podcast in a couple of weeks, you're sort of in the middle of July, we all should look, it is a grind to do this. I think I asked someone once who had his own business and was doing success and was doing very well. I said, "What's the best way you would describe, being an entrepreneur and having a business?" And the word he came up with is either, I don't know if it's one word or two, but it was mother effer was the word he used. And he loves being an entrepreneur. He loves doing the work. I mean, I can tell you as an entrepreneur, he's right. I can tell you, like, as a person who's trying to close deals and as a salesperson, like, it is a grind. There is no way getting around the fact that it is a grind. And there are days that will put you that'll put you down. But this afternoon is a new time. You get off of that sales call that didn't go well. You have new opportunities to do stuff. Next week, July 1st, it starts again. So much about sales is emotion. So much about sales is mindset. You got to take advantage of that. Yeah, Paul.
One more tweet before we depart today here. Somebody, I'm going to expand upon it. They were asking how much time should a salesperson put into marketing versus closing. And I think that's appropriate as we head into the new quarter here. I'm going to figure out a new plan, as you said. How much time should I plan towards following up leads that marketing sent me, creating my own leads, and trying to go out and just close deals and be a salesman?
Boy, that was a great question. I mean, I wish I had a formula that just could apply to everybody. I think that, my answer to that is it's going to vary depending on the time of the month, the time of the quarter, and what you need and where your best opportunities are. But I can also tell you need to constantly be doing all three of those. And here's what I mean by that. You've always got deals that you can't just let close themselves. You have to continue to sell. I did a blog post recently that talked about a friend of mine who runs premium product and suite sales for the Golden State Warriors. Earlier this season, like his selling environment does not get any better, right? They've got an amazing team in a great, rich environment, selling environment. He still had to sell. He still had to close. He's like, okay, if the suite doesn't sell tonight and we have a game tonight, I can't sell that suite tomorrow for that same game. It's gone. If I sold the suite tonight but did not sell premium liquor, did not sell a visit from the mascot, like there's always selling. Right? So you always have to be proactively closing. Even when you have a big pipeline, the most important time to prospect is when you have a big pipeline. Because when you flush that pipeline out, when you close some of those deals and other deals go away, that's when you need pipeline, and you get that pipeline by prospecting. Look, you are in charge of your commission. Your marketing team is not. Your marketing team may have a goal of giving you leads, but at the end of the day, if they fail, it is still on you to hit your number. So yes, push your marketing team to generate leads. Yes, spend time following those leads. Those leads may be far more valuable than your cold calling because you've got someone warm, you've got someone inbound. So triage your time based on quality and interest and response rate, and that's fine. But I would say, and this is partly why sales is hard, you got to be doing all three of those things on a regular basis. If you're closing deals now, you got to be prospecting for Q3 and Q4 at the same time. Boy, it is. It looks like I'm getting the wrap up symbol here from Paul. This went way faster than usually. I just usually ask people questions and they go off, and that's easy. I had pages more of notes here, Paul. I had all kinds of stuff I was going to cover. We didn't get to.
I think this is a thing. At the end of the quarter, you should do this. We should have a place to commiserate. It's like pulling an all nighter before an exam. We get last minute tips and motivation and ideas here.
Here's what I will tell you to do as we leave today. We've got an amazing schedule of speakers already and guests already ready for Sales Pipeline Radio into Q3. So definitely join us every week. Thank you for those of you who are on this with us live today. You can find the podcast, a replay of this episode at Google Play as well as the iTunes Store. What I didn't get to that I'll just mention, if you go to our blog at HeinzMarketing.com and you type in quarterly review template, you will get a blog post where I outline a 6-point process for how to do a postmortem on the quarter, postmortem on the month, and set up goals, do some planning, set up some adjustments in a review cadence for the next selling period. So take advantage of that. We'll talk more about that in a future session as well. But in the meantime, enjoy the rest of the month, the rest of the quarter. Have a really wonderful 4th of July weekend for those of you listening live. And for everyone else, we'll see you next time. Sales Pipeline Radio.
Sales Pipeline Radio, the only place to learn how to build up that sales pipeline and make it work for you, with Matt Heinz from Heinz Marketing.